Welcome back. My name is Kyla P. Barnes, your financial chef and coach. I appreciate you tuning in to my podcast, Conversations about the C word. The C word can be anything out there. It's just really a time to reflect and have meaningful dialogue about the topics that we're experiencing in this life that matter. So, the topic today is going to be around the importance of you not losing yourself. I was sitting maybe yesterday or a few days ago, as I often do, and I was reflecting on the importance of not losing yourself during this time. As we are all aware, we have a brand new administration that has returned to the White House, and many things have changed. Many things are in flux so far for the year. The stock market is down. The Department of Education is being dismantled. There are people who are illegally being deported. There are laws, amendments, and executive orders that are put in place for people not to expand. There are many individuals who are losing their jobs at this time, questioning how they're going to pay the bills that they have and how are they supposed to move forward, either in life as well as in an academic career, should their academic financial aid be on hold. So there's many things that are happening at this time that could really wrap a person up in being lost. But what I was thinking to myself was this is probably the time in which you'll have to reaffirm the marriage to yourself to not lose yourself. Everybody has it tough. Absolutely. There are people who are self employed, who enjoy and who envy the benefits of those working, but not the time cost that is exchanged. There are people who are working that envy the time allocation that people have who are entrepreneurs. But again, it's the same spectrum. It's just if one person is looking over and the other person is looking up and over. This podcast this week is on you not losing yourself because you're going to need to invert into the places in which you know and hold sacred in order for you to make it through a time like this where everything is changing. A time like this when the day before looks vastly different than the next day. A time like this when everybody is encouraging you to lose yourself. One of the favorite quotes that I have came across in my lifetime is the hardest challenge is to be yourself in a world where everyone is trying to make you somebody else, by E.E. Cummings. So how do you make sure that you don't lose yourself? Well, the most critical thing I think we have to observe first is what is it that you're marching towards? As I heard a sermon from one of the pastors online, they were stating that you have to define early what you consider to be successful because that's what you're going to navigate towards. So if you being successful is doing wrong things and you manage to do wrong things without getting caught, that may be your definition of successful. Some other people may have a idea of being successful, of being happy or making a lot of money or having happiness and peace and meaning in their life, freedom and high connections. Some of the most intangible things that are going to be noteworthy for you is actually having things in life that are things no one can take from you. As the Bible says, no one should be able to steal your joy. That's why you have to hide it in a place. You have to secure what makes you happy. And also, when it's at a lost for leaving, you have to protect it. Most people do seek a happiness towards financial security, maybe even growth, and even self-care. But to make sure that you don't lose yourself in pursuing either your definition of success or some of the things that give people high elation or happiness, is that you have to make sure you are very aware of your goals. You have to be aware of all of the rhetoric inside and outside around you, the imagery. Is that negative? Is it positive? Who is in your circle? Who is positively or negatively affecting you and your thoughts and your next decisions? Also, you're able to make sure you don't lose yourself by prioritizing your opinion above others. You cannot be every definition of everyone else out there. As the quote by Oscar Wilde states, be yourself because all the other versions are taken. Also, when you are thinking about how you can maintain yourself in a time, in an environment that's telling you to be shape shifty, it is critically important for you to have relationships that are bearing the fruit of where you want to go. As I was listening to Pastor Norfolk, maybe 2 or 3 sermons ago, he said that people will date the worst versions of themselves and they'll marry the best version of who they aspire to be. So, making connections with where you want to be, concealing relationships, having relationships that are positive with where you want to go is likely going to give you a meaningful connection. You already know what yesterday looks like because you already lived it. But tomorrow is going to need to have you get there through mentorship, a positive attitude, a plan, or just by faith, because faith works too. There are disadvantages to getting lost in yourself or losing yourself along the way. And they show up in the signs of anxiety, fear, frustration, a sense of disconnect, and potentially a loss of your critical values, which you have known to be true your entire life. In the end, it's a pure loss of time and energy. When you lose time and energy, you lose yourself, as well as it makes it harder for you to continue moving forward. To make sure you don't lose yourself in this life, you have to be aware of the distractions, mentally mostly, as well as some of them that come along the way from your environment, as mentioned earlier. Most people miss their goals not because they weren't well defined or they couldn't see them in their mind, but for lack of commitment. Others can't define it because they're too lost in disorganization. And then there's self-doubt and worry, which can erode anything. Self-doubt and worry, a negative image, can take out the strongest of all of us. It can literally be one drop of water that will break the tallest, the deepest, the oldest mountain in half. Overthinking also can take something from good to it was never, ever, ever going to be good enough, which simply just is not true. And it's a shame because there are some people out there that can really move the needle for where we are as a people, where we are as a culture to the next level. They're positive forces, but they're stuck behind their non-commitment. They're stuck behind terrible practices that they probably inherited from someone who had terrible practices that they haven't divorced as being a very bad idea. It's almost as if they're getting lost in the forest and they can't find their way out, even though they have themselves tethered to a tree. That's a person who has lost themselves. So to make sure that you are not in that camp, to make sure that you are pursuing the things that matter to you, make sure you continue to define your goals, prioritize your self-care, your mental health. If you're not well, admit you're not well. It's okay to journal. It's okay to talk about it with people. It's okay to be emotionally naked with people. We have to, at some point, be honest with at least one person in this lifetime. Otherwise, we're going to feel as though no one cares about us and we won't be grounded. There's a few affirmations that I use along the way to make sure that I stay grounded. I remind myself, and you could do it too, but I remind myself that I am centered, I am grounded. I remind myself that I am connected to nature. Everything I need, I already have. I am safe and I am loved. I don't need anything more than what I already have in front of me and what I can do in my hands. You can repeat that affirmation or even make up your own affirmation, but it is to make sure that you keep going. It's to make sure that when you feel as though there is nothing that you can do and you're just caving in and you're crying every day to go to sleep, crying every day to move out the door, crying every day to go to work, that is not for you. If you have to dispel all that energy first, if you have to send all of that energy, that vulnerability out in the world first in order to do something, it's simply not worth for you. The things that I do to keep me grounded, and you may have your own list, is I observe nature. I try to stay in the calmness of what I am experiencing and only get to the subjective matter of what is happening, what is physically transpiring that I'm having the issue with. I try to remove my emotion from that so that I can see the problem. Your problem will persist longer if you are not able to see what the actual issue is. And to throw solutions at something and that's not appropriate means that it's the wrong fix. So being in nature, staying calm, breathing, listening to music, it could be the most ratchet music out there. But sometimes, if you can get some calm in the middle of a storm, then do that. Symphony music, which is calm, and, white noise or ASMR noises may not be for everybody. So find your vibration of what keeps you grounded. Create a routine, play with texture, keep your hands busy. If you have to walk, talk, think, and pray, do that. The things that are worth pursuing in life, the Bible tells us, is that it has to be rooted in the things that are right, the things that are noble, the things that are true, the things that are pure, and the things that are lovely. That's in Philippians. And that's where you should put your stock in the event that you find yourself floating away. Lastly, I have just a few quotes for you that'll hopefully give you some encouragement throughout this week or at this time when you're searching for ways to stay grounded. Find yourself a book to read. Find yourself an author that you relate to. Open up that book, read their words, and be encouraged by their story. Even though we find ourselves to be unique, no one out here is so unique that we don't have another duplicate of ourselves, of how we think, how we move, because birds of a feather do flock together. I remember a quote by Maya Angelou that said, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." I also like the quote by Charles Schwab, "A person can accomplish almost anything they want in this life with enough enthusiasm." I like the quote by Amanda Gorman from The Hill We Climb, "For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." And lastly, I like the quote by Aliko Dangote. He is one of the richest Black individuals in the world. His net worth exceeds Oprah. I'm giving you his quote versus another person's quote who's a trillionaire or multi-trillionaire because I myself am African American. And when I am seeking ways to move forward, I will navigate to people who are where I want to be, who look like me, and who have a story in which I can understand. So Aliko Dangote is worth about $23+ billion. Oprah's around $3 billion. He was quoted about 1 or 2 years ago saying something to the effect of, "Your goals are important, knowledge is important, and growing is important as a person. You don't need anyone else except yourself, so stop looking for a partner. To build any successful business here in your mind or where you go, you must start small and dream vastly big. Never ever compete on prices. Instead, compete on services and innovation." And that's a very good word. Again, my name is Kyla P. Barnes. I am your financial chef and coach. Thank you for taking time to listen to my podcast, The C Word. Check me out online at www.onegingles.com.